Welcome to the Taiwan language episode, a podcast for learning and insights in Mandarin and Taiwanese. I'm your host, Yasmin. Welcome to today's episode. Remember those stories I shared in the previous episodes about the Chinese Civil War and how people moved from mainland China to Taiwan around 1945 and afterward? Well, today's story happens after the Nationalist government moved to Taiwan. It's about the life of a retired military officer. So let me dive into it. The story I want to talk about today is by Pai Hsien-yung, and it's called New Year's Eve. It's a part of Pai Hsien-yung's collection of short stories called Taipei People. New Year's Eve is that last day of the Lunar New Year, when people are getting ready for the new year. In this story, we follow a retired military officer named Lai Ming-shen. After retiring, he decided to head to Taipei from Tainan on New Year's Eve to meet up with his old military buddies. As they chat, they reminisced about their experiences during the Northern Expedition and the anti-Japanese War. The choice of New Year's Eve as the setting is pretty symbolic. It's like saying goodbye to the old and welcoming the new. Now let's get personal for a moment. Retirement can be a tough transition. You spend your whole career climbing the ladder and then suddenly you are back to square one. It's like those TV dramas where the big shot has to step down eventually. You might feel a bit lost, wondering if it's because you are getting old or if you are just not good enough anymore. But retirement isn't the end of the world. It's just a new chapter. Sure, it's a bit weird going from being a big shot to being just another person, but that's life, right? We all long for someone who will lend us an ear, especially those who have had their moment in the spotlight. They crave acknowledgement, a new yearning for someone who truly comprehends their illustrious past. Yet there are times when those they confide in fail to grasp the splendor of their history. It takes me back to my days of fervently teaching children, only to realize later that they perceived my past achievements and life experiences quite differently. It's akin to my father, who relished sharing his military tales with his comrades. Back then, men would swap war stories while women exchanged childbirth anecdotes. Essentially, it's only those who've walked a similar path who can genuinely empathize with your emotions. The protagonist in this story, Lai Ming-shen, she's been through a lot, fighting in wars, achieving glory, but now he's old and frail. As he reminisced about the past, he heard the sounds of New Year's Eve celebrations outside. Fireworks, sky lanterns, it's all happening. And as he fell asleep, drunk and lost in memories, it's like he's saying goodbye to the old year and welcoming the new. After reading this story, it is as if I've been transported back to the time. Even though we are not from the generation that lived through the anti-Japanese and the Northern Expedition periods. I still recall my father's friend, rumored to be a former commander from the mainland who settled in Taiwan at that time. I vividly remembered seeing a real weapon a sword, displayed in his house for the first time, which made me feel a bit intimidated. Maybe it was because I was just a child back then, and I didn't measure up to the height of that sword. My father told me that his former commander was a general in mainland China and brought this sword with him when he moved to Taiwan. What a precious memento that was. I wonder if there's a story similar to that of this retired officer, Lai Ming-shen, leaving one's hometown, migrating to another place, almost like escaping, having to leave behind the place where you've spent most of your life. What kind of feeling does that evoke? That concludes my sharing for today, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And now let's learn a few sentences of Taiwanese. The first one, 你莫在遐假搞. 你莫在遐假搞. Don't try to be clever. This is a caution against someone trying to act smarter than they actually are. So if you want to say, don't try to be clever, 你莫在遐假搞. A second one, 伊定定得死人. 伊定定得死人. You often offend people. While this indicates that a person frequently behaves in a way that upsets or annoys others. So, if you want to say, he often offends people, you can say, 伊定定得死人. 伊定定得死人. Next one, 我比你较侪岁. 我比你较侪岁. I'm older than you. This straightforward statement that the speaker is of a greater age than the person being addressed. So, I'm older than you. 我比你较侪岁. 我比你较侪岁. Okay, and the final one, and the last one, 有嘛好，无嘛好。有嘛好，无嘛好. It's fine if there is, and it's fine if there isn't. This expresses indifference or acceptance towards the preferences of absence or something. This expresses indifference or acceptance towards the presence or absence of something. So, if you want to say, it is fine if there is, and it's fine if there isn't, you can say, 有嘛好，无嘛好。有嘛好，无嘛好. Let's recap today's Taiwanese phrases. First one, 你莫在遐假搞. 你莫在遐假搞. The second one, 伊定定得死人. 伊定定得死人. The third one, 我比你较侪岁. 我比你较侪岁. Last one, 有嘛好，无嘛好。有嘛好，无嘛好。Alright, if you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a 5-star review on your listening platform. Feel free to share this podcast with your friends to help more people discover this podcast. You can also support my work by buying me a cup of coffee, which helps this episode continue providing learning resources. To enrich your learning experience, I create a study guide in Chinese with pinyin versions. You can use this study guide to preview before the new podcast episode launches or review after listening to the podcast to enhance your language skills. Make sure to check our show notes for more information. Thank you for joining us. And I hope you enjoy us again on Taiwan language episode.